I'm the CEO of NoodleWorks Interactive. I'm a children's design specialist, and we consult with companies who want to improve their children's content. But for over 30 years, I've been studying children's play patterns and what turns a simple click or a tap into a magical experience. And I finished gathering all that information into a new book, which Warren mentioned here. And it's everything a children's interactive designer might need to know. And some of this is what I want to share with you today. So I want to talk about making magic and how to create games that children love. And making magic is kind of a mix of three components. It's getting to know your audience, and it's recognizing the authentic nature of play and play patterns, and what makes great interactive design and how to sustain engagement. Sustaining engagement is really the real trick with making a game that really has legs and makes money and continues on for years. So, I think every design should start with kids. But as a design consultant, I'm continually surprised how often it doesn't. Many times kids aren't even brought into the design until the very end, which is always scary. And kids are key. After decades of building and testing interactive content with kids, they continue to be my teachers and my most valued design partners. They tell me what's working. They show me the play patterns if I missed it. And I've never done a product where I didn't learn something new. In fact, years ago, I was talking with a friend from an executive at Nickelodeon, and he confided in me that every time we think we know who kids are, we drive into a ditch. And I think this is Nickelodeon talking. I mean, they've been doing thousands of shows, and yet they start thinking they know who it is, and then they have trouble. So, children perceive the world differently than adults do. And it's a real perspective shift. And as designers, we need to be reminded that a child's experience is different than our own. And being a former child does not make you an expert in children's design, as many of us, because we don't remember what a 5-year-old was like, because the brain of a 5-year-old is so much different than the brain of a 7-year-old. So the question is, how do we authentically connect with kids, their interests and their interactive needs? One way is to know about the ages and stages of child development. This guy and this guy are both kids. The one on the right is 11, the one on the left is, I think, 5 or 4. They're both kids, but who they are, what gets their attention, and their interests are light years apart. So why are ages and stages so important? Well, one is that it helps you to understand and connect with your specific audience. And each group has their own likes and dislikes, and they're very strong dislikes and dislikes. So oftentimes I have companies come to me and say, oh, we're building a network. And I go, well, great, what's the age range? And they'll say 4 to 15. And I go, well, you're going to have a big problem here, because once you get above 7, the 7-year-olds think everybody under them are babies. And there's a separation. So if you start a network and you think you're going to have this large market, if you build it so the 5-year-olds like it, the 8-year-olds won't touch it. And this is why all the big networks have Disney and Disney Junior and Nick Junior to actually separate that place so that the older kids don't feel like they're being fed baby stuff. This is about the cognitive skills, humor, challenge, social interaction. They all change dramatically by age. So the 5-year-old likes slapstick humor, just simple, straightforward, silly stuff. Does not get sarcasm, takes everything literally, whereas the 11-year-old is totally into sarcasm, thinks that's the big thing. In fact, that's how they talk to you most of the time. So understanding all this helps you connect by speaking directly to their evolving personas. Understanding age and stages is like a map. It's a roadmap to connecting to these guys. Another important thing in making magical games is to have a deep understanding of the nature of play itself. And play is as old as the mammalian brain. Our brains developed as from the reptilian brain, and then we have the mammalian brain, then we have the neocortex. Well, the language is part of our more modern cerebral addition, the neocortex. But in evolutionary terms, we could play long before we could talk, because the mammalian brain is all about play. So when your dog is on the other end of that old sock, he's not tugging because he wants the sock. He's tugging because he wants to play. Play is how all young mammals learn about their world. Lions practice pouncing, gazelles practice running, young monkeys practice climbing through trees, and kids are practicing learning about the world. We humans are driven to learn through play in the same way. So kids are wired to play, and this biology drives us to play. Peter Gray has written a lot about play. It says children play in order to have fun, not to learn. Learning is the side effect from an evolutionary perspective, is play's purpose. And we just see this, how it is that kids want to learn. They want to learn about their world, but the natural way they go about it is through play. And there's a lot of research that speaks to the serious problems that come from play deprivation. So all the more reason to take play seriously in our designs. So play leads to engagement. And my wife and design partner, Barbara Chase, says education is not always playful, but play is always educational. And we've seen this so much, and we create a lot of educational products. And often the people that come to us have these terribly boring things that are like they're trying to shovel information into kids by getting them to click. It's not really playing. And but we believe that we can make the environment playful, and kids will want to. We can teach them anything, given the right play environment. So how do you recognize play? Kids are naturally curious about the world. They're in a state of play when they're asking and answering their own questions. In this case, she's pouring the water to see what it does. They're like little scientists discovering how the world works. As designers, we need to take a look. We need to learn to recognize and play and support this natural learning state. Understanding that is what makes projects magical. So, what are the attributes of play? Well, first, it's apparently purposeless. Stuart Brown, who wrote the book Play, says play activities don't seem to have any survival value. Play is done for its own sake. It's voluntary. Play is first and foremost an expression of freedom. It's what one wants to do as opposed to what one is obliged to do. And we think about play, we all know play, but you never, until I actually started studying it, I didn't realize how far down there is so much more to learn about play. It's inherently attractive. What is it that gets a child's attention? What do they expect will happen? What do they want to see more of? It creates a freedom from time. Albert Einstein said, put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour and it seems like a minute. That's relativity. We've all had that experience of, you're having a good time and time flies. Another attribute is you have a diminished consciousness of self. We stop worrying about whether we look good or awkward, smart or stupid. We stop thinking about the fact that we are thinking. We are fully in the moment and in the zone. It offers up improvisational potential, open to serendipity and chance. The result is that we stumble upon new behaviors, thoughts, strategies, movements, and ways of being. This is why play is so important for companies who need to increase their IP. They want new ideas. You've got to be able to go and play with ideas. You can't just jump in and say, okay, now be creative. You have to have something, you have to have a room full of stuff and then go play with it. And finally, it provides a continuation desire. When you're done playing with something that really meets your needs, you want to do it again. It's not over, I want to do it again. It's actually the play is the important thing, not the goal. So, curiosity invites play. And kids are naturally curious. Young children in particular are naturally enhanced by the magic of the world. You can see this while watching them at the beach, as they let grains of sand run slowly through their fingers. They're learning about relative size, granularity, gravity, texture, heat absorption, and more. But what they are doing is playing, because kids are curious. And No one has to tell them, they just do it. The desire is in the desire to explore is in their hardwiring. And curiosity, as a designer, is something to be embraced, supported, and developed. For years we were told curiosity kills the cat. But actually, curiosity is what creates kids that want to play and learn. It's part of the path to lifelong learning. So, the curiosity drives exploration. You see these two kids here. This is the moment where curiosity drives interaction and learning. And what is it that they want to know? They want to know what's that. And then the next thing they want to know is what's it do? And then the next thing they want to know is what can I do with it? And that's the trick, what can I do with it is the most important design consideration for designers, because that is what's going to make engagement magical. And it doesn't matter if it's digital or if it's real. The play patterns just move right over into it, so you're just going to want to be part of it. Getting a child's attention once is easy, but keeping it is more difficult. So, what might that look like? This is one way to do it is to give kids plenty of interesting things to do. Design an interface that invites and encourages curiosity. This is the main goal behind the play pattern I designed for Living Books over 25 years ago. If something looks tappable, it is. Exploration is encouraged. There's 42 active buttons on this page that aren't the navigational buttons. And they were extremely popular. And this method invites and reinforces their participation. These storybook titles are still available today on half a dozen modern platforms and in 6 different languages. So good design holds up over time because play patterns are timeless. So play patterns. When children and adults play patterns emerge. And there are lots of different play patterns and they cross over. So that multiple patterns are often happening at once. These are just a few of the ones listed, but I'll run through some here. So you can find play patterns everywhere once you start looking. This one is about object play, but it's also about imaginary play. And all of these cross over into the digital world. You can think of lots of car games and things that people do, kids do with cars, all different kinds, exploration, racing, there's a variety of them. This is physical play, but it's also mastery play. Because just going down, sitting up on the slide is a big deal when you're small. You're way up high, you have to lose control, you're going to go down. Later you begin experimenting as you develop mastery, in this case slide mastery. And soon you're going to be going down upside down and backwards. And a few years later, you might want to see what happens when you go down on your skateboard, as my friends and I tried. This is another form of mastery. And mastery is something that kids are always looking for. They're always looking for the next thing. So when you think about games like Mario and all of those, they're all about, there's scaffolded levels of mastery building. This is dress up and fantasy play. It's kind of exploring persona roles. What if I look like this? What if I was a pirate? What if I was a superhero? And in fact, being those different personalities and trying them on actually changes. There's a whole study that just came out about kids wearing power outfits makes them a different person, a different kid. They react differently than they do when they're just wearing their own clothes as themselves. They become stronger, more confident, more able to, I can do it because I'm Batman, because I'm Superman, because I'm someone else. But this also includes several modes of storytelling. So she's telling stories about this and what happens. This is obviously physical play, but it's also very social, explorative play, because it takes two to toggle. And there's a cooperative give and take dynamic that's going on here between these two boys. One got his tongue out, one's on the top, one's on the bottom, and they get to push back and forth against each other. Play patterns come in all shapes and sizes, so the question is how do you apply them all to digital world? Well, Tokaboka took this tend and befriend, the play pattern here, and created Toka Tea Party. How many of you seen Toka Tea Party? Not that many. Okay, this was an early app, and it really put Tokaboka on the map. Kids pick the tablecloth, the plates, the food, and the drinks, and then they begin eating it. And we use this when we're testing, when we have to keep some kids occupied while we're testing something else for this age group. And we just give them the app. We don't tell them how to use it and send them off to play. After 10 or 15 minutes later, they bring it back and probably tell us that they washed the dishes, which is part of the app. You know, the Tokaboka tapped into this intrinsic play pattern, and it didn't need any instructions. We didn't have to tell the 5-year-olds or the 4-year-olds how to use it. They figured it out together. They cooperated, they played, and with no instructions, that means it's immediately an international product because you've got no language. So very smart, very clean, right? Just totally tapped into a play pattern. And you know, when we think of building play pattern, we often think of Legos. But digitally, this pattern was used to great effect with Minecraft. Huge product, as everyone knows, where kids could build their own worlds. They're not just buildings, they're actually building worlds. But then it went farther than that because it aged up. And kids were now, it's a social play pattern because they're playing with kids from all over. Our daughter in California had a friend who was in Australia, and they played all the time together. And so it was very interesting that there's this larger social set going on, how play patterns in the digital world can actually go other places than they could in the physical world. And another way of looking at building in blocks is that you build it, kids tend to, and then you knock it down. I've seen this in kindergartens, I've seen it with my own kids, and I did it myself. And so Angry Birds took this pattern and they decided to, they created, this is an invitation. It's an invitation to knock this down. And we all know what a huge product that was. And where it's your job to knock down the blocks. And so that you don't feel bad about it, they created a backstory because the pigs stole your babies. So they're bad pigs. And if you knock them down and you don't get all of them, the pigs are snarky and they laugh at you. You know, you didn't get us. And that's inspiring you to try again. So they this is again, just tapping into a natural play pattern. And then, you know, as I was saying, spontaneous play patterns can show up all the time. During testing, they can, while you're walking down the street, but you really have to pay attention and honor them what they do. So, NoodleWorks is a product that we created, and I'm going to show you just a little bit of it and tell you, you know, so in NoodleWorks, how it works is, you know, this, every time you tap on a word or you tap on a character, they do something. This is about what if words were plays. What if words were toys? Volume too high?
No, it's good.
Okay. And so we had this thing where you could click on the box here, and then the word comes up. And we thought, oh, that's great. You know, but
stretch.
As soon as kids got in here, the first thing they did was this. They rapid tapped it and would crash us every time. And you know, no adult had thought to do that. But the first kid that got on it did it, and we watched it with every kid that came in. And my programmer said, well, we can make it so that they can't do that. And we said, no, that's a play pattern they just showed us. We want you to do that. But we want to be able to have it not crash. So he had to work around. We did a lot of work around trying to figure it out. And let's see if I can find it. So when we were, another thing that came up when we were playing was
stretch.
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 So let's see.
Stretch.
Okay, so you can stretch the word.
Stretch.
Spin it around. But what we noticed that was all the kids kept pointing at this
stretch
because they wanted to knock the bugs down. And we hadn't thought of that, so we had to go back in and make it so that they could. And then all the way through the product, they just kept showing us by their playing all the different things. Another one that showed that was really interesting for us was, So we had it set up so you could swipe down, you could swipe up, you could swipe left, and you could swipe right. And when we were testing it, we had a couple of kids, one of my grandkids who was probably 10 or 11 at the time, came in and he said, you know, if there was a red ball floating around in here, and it would float it over to where I could bump it, and then it went crazy all over the room, that would be really cool. And I thought, that's a brilliant idea, that's a great idea. Except that this product is designed as a language learning product for kids who are 3 to 6, and he can already read, so he's looking for more gameplay. And when we ask the kids in the target audience, what do you want? More bugs. So we had to go back and spend a lot more money adding a lot more animation, but when you drag the work around, you can get the characters to react. So we added this, and of course the kids love this because they can make the bugs bump their butts together, But anyway, that's what NoodleWorks was all about. But everywhere along the way, the kids taught us about something else, something else, something else. They're always showing us these little things because it's what are you trying to do there? Well, I'm trying to make this happen. I'm trying to make that happen. And so then we go back in and do everything we can to make that part of it. So, what did we learn about play patterns? They're universal. Any culture in the world, they can see the same kind of play patterns happening with kids. They're device independent. They can be real toys, they can be digital toys, they can be wherever you find them. So they're really powerful that way. They overlap and they interconnect, as we saw the difference between Minecraft and how it played out with Angry Birds. Those are just 2 of the ways you can play out a building pattern. They can be approached from different ways. Same issue in a way. Device independent, we'll have them connect. They change by age and the developmental stage. So the same play pattern is going to be different for a different age kid. So great programs enable multiple play patterns at once. So come back to making magic. It's important to understand ages and stages, the nature of play, and maintaining engagement. So let's talk about that. So maintaining engagement is the art of keeping attention. You can get attention, you can get a kid's attention just by doing this, because we're wired to look at something moving. But you can't necessarily keep their attention. So maintaining it is the hard trick. So the goal of maintaining engagement is to go from this to this. And here's my favorite ways of doing that. One is you want to keep things alive, and I'll talk about them a little more. You want to design for flow. You want to add intermittent reinforcement. And you want to add surprise. So in keeping it alive, children expect programs to operate in real time like the real world. So if it's slow, it's dumb. That's about keeping responsiveness, right? And then you want to offer a sense of control. So many programs think just because there's an interactive click that you're offering them control, but that isn't really control because they want to do something. They want to know, what can I do with it? So you don't want to just spoon feed them real information. You want to give them real puzzles to solve. Give them something to do. Honor them. Honor their curiosity. Tapping for tapping's sake can be completely boring, but empowering their actions will make them stick around longer. Children are more likely to engage when they understand what to do and how to do it. And whether interacting with characters, building, driving, or just exploring, you want to creatively fuel their curiosity about what might happen next. Another trick I like to do is I like to keep it alive by creating a relationship with a character. Kids in this age group, and especially in the younger age groups, are willing to believe that anything that moves is alive. You saw in Noodle Words, when the word was just sitting there, you just do this with it, so that it gets their attention, and the kids know, oh, it's alive. But if you add a pair of eyeballs to anything that moves, it goes from being alive to having consciousness, because it's got eyes. And if you add a mouth, then it has personality, and it starts talking to you, it's magic. And we know from every Pixar film, or any Disney film, that talking candlesticks and cars, kids will buy it all. They're there in a heartbeat, and we are as adults as well, anthropomorphically just imagining it. So you want to foster a relationship, and then you want to offer something for them to care about. They care about characters, and they'll stay with you for a long time if you can have some kind of a relationship with the character. So another trick for maintaining engagement is the flow state. And this is developed by the positive psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I think that's how it's pronounced. And But he really talked about that magic point where you step into the zone. And the zone is this place where optimum flow happens when the challenge level matches the level of skill and control. So if you have a really challenging game, but you can't have any control to do anything about it, you get frustrated and you leave. And if you have a really high control, but in a very boring environment, same thing, you're bored and you leave. But when you get the two together, you can just step into that zone where the gameplay is magical and you just go on and on and on and on because you're in the zone. And this is where you step into that. All those conditions of play, you forget about time, you forget about, that's why people who are playing console games often forget to go to the bathroom because they're so engaged in the gameplay. So, another one is intermittent reinforcement. And what does that look like? You know, what does intermittent reinforcement sound like or look like in a game? And years ago I was working with a Disney property, Bear in the Big Blue House. It was for a children's network. And in the game, we had a card game that we built for the younger kids in the network that was this game with Tutter. We shot him on a blue screen with the Muppeteer. And it was a real fun game. The kids loved it. And Tutter was a great character. I don't know if any of you have ever seen him before, but he's very excitable. He's a lot of fun. And he always got a great response when you picked a card from him. So sometimes it would be, something that you got him, and other times he would be, oh, that's okay, And then occasionally there was one where he just went like this, wow, and he fell off the screen. And he just disappeared off the chair. Well, that turned out to be an intermittent reinforcement because we found that kids were coming back just to try and find that game over and over and over again. And we were tracking who came into it because it was a network. So we had older kids who were coming way above the age range of the game we were playing. We had 10-year-olds in there were playing because they wanted to see Tutter's reaction. And anytime you can have an intermittent reinforcement in there, it really makes a big difference. And the last one I want to talk about is surprise. And, we all like surprises, we like good surprises. And we even have surprise parties, we're going to have a surprise party for you. Surprise happens when something unexpected happens, creating a mismatch with our previous knowledge. So, this is a case of surprise, and surprise is wonderful in learning because, again, it gets your attention. And so, surprise is great because it gets our attention, it supports intermittent reinforcement, it creates a state of arousal, and it drives further interaction and exploration. But when we began looking more into that, what was really interesting is that we found that there are different kinds of surprise. There's startle surprise. And startle surprise is the one that makes you jump. It talks to the ancient reptilian brain, part of our brain, and it's used in every scary movie you have ever seen to get you to jump. Just when the monster disappears down the hole and you come back out, you go, oh, he's finally dead. Right, he jumps out again to get you. We've all seen that, and we call this the Jack-in-the-Box effect, because you know it's going to come, it's going to come, and then when it comes, you still jump. It's like that scene from Elf where he's checking the boxes, It's very funny, but it's something that's one kind. And then another kind of surprise is amaze surprise. And this is just where you're just like, wow, or oh my God, the oh my God effect. And this is, or the epic win. And this is a kind of amaze surprise that game designer Jane McGonigal said, an epic win is an outcome that is so extraordinarily positive, you had no idea it was possible until you achieved it. And when you get there, you are shocked to discover what you are truly capable of. So epic win, it's just an amazing thing. And there's insight surprise. And this is not about shock, it's the aha moment. It's that brilliant flash of understanding. It's it could be a mini satori or it could be the moment of enlightenment, but it's about how things connect together. Now I've seen this happen testing with kids with learning products, where they turn around and all of a sudden go, oh, 1/6, that's one of 6 parts. And they've had that moment. And then humor surprise. And humor surprise, all jokes have a punchline, and all kids love humor. It's kind of a categorical mistake. They call it a square peg in a round hole. And the same thing works in storytelling. So stories have plot twists. So we, see, Warren got me on timer here, so I'll jump off. So to wrap it up, here's my tips on making interactive magic. Get to know your target audience well. Support curiosity and kid control. Kids are your teachers. Connect with them early and often. Play patterns are useful, are powerful, so use them, and add surprise for delight and interest, and play more yourself. And thank you.